Hello and welcome. It's Trackside Lounge. We're back again after a little bit of a break, but everyone's entitled to a little bit of a break, but motorsport never sleeps. So we're back discussing motorsport again, and I'm going to jump straight in here, guys. Nathan, of course, and Mike from Hoon Corp. Formula One again. Now, this is not the usual Red Bull Liam Lawson circus that we've seen before. There's new stuff coming out talking about how Max Verstappen is going to Aston Martin because Honda are offering $300 million. That's the deal that apparently is in the works. Or is he going to go and join Mercedes?
Wow. I heard 240 million, 300.
300 million. Read that this morning. But, or is he actually going to go to Mercedes? What's going on there?
Well, see, this is the thing, is that especially so early in the 2025 season, we can basically pick a driver, pick a team, and make a headline that, Esteban Ocon's going to go to Haas. Wow, it's so early. I mean, I'm not saying that it might have some merit, might have some backing, but I mean, it's just too early to really say unless there was something brutally legit.
There is apparently Christian Horner has said there is a clause in Max Verstappen's contract that says if at a certain point in the season he is third or lower in the Drivers' Championship, the actual contract clause gets activated.
And also, if the car's not up to speed for him, if he's not been given a car that's up to championship winning status, he has a clause there too.
To jump out, yeah.
Did you hear about Isaac Hedger?
No.
No, I just wanted to know if you had. There's nothing about it. Because it's all about rumours at the end of the day. I mean, really, the reaction is, do you go and leave a multi-championship winning team? I mean, Lewis, pulled out of Mercedes now with Ferrari.
But
just saying.
Well, here we go. It's another headline doing the rounds is that Lewis is going to retire.
I mean, to be fair, that's not entirely before time. He's been in it since what, 2007, 2008.
I mean, let's not take away the fact he has been the standard for many, many years, and now for the last few years, Max has obviously had the crowning glory.
Yeah.
And the rumours about retirement for Lewis has been long going on. But I think his driving's still good. I don't think he's not bashing to the wall every 5 minutes, and I think he just needs that confidence thing. And honestly, we think back to the days of Schumacher with Ferrari, man. If Lewis can really harness that horse, him and is it Leclerc, isn't it? They can really. I think they'll be a formidable team, like Barrichello and Schumacher. I think they've got a really good ingredient there. Whether it turns into that high speed cake, I don't know, but.
Hang on, I'm going to back that track up. The high-speed cake.
Well, they've got the ingredients to make a really good
high-speed cake.
High-speed cake, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think
you heard it here first.
The hard part about Formula One is it's so easy to forget that it's a constructor's thing as much as it's a driver's thing. So when you have Lewis and Mercedes for as long as he was, consistently at the top, and Valtteri was quite the teammate as well. He was, had his moments. But then now he's in a Ferrari and he's not doing so great. Does that take anything away from his achievements? Probably not, but it does remind you that actually the car does play a big factor in it. I mean, that's why there is a constructors' championship as well as there's a drivers' championship. And, again, for Lewis to have had such a run that he did, first in McLaren, where he had, pretty good success. Then he went to Mercedes, had phenomenal success, and for such a long time too. Now for him to have gone to Ferrari, I think people did sort of see it as a bucket list thing. He'd always talked about wanting to drive for Ferrari.
Yeah, that's true.
So now he's done that. So look, if he does retire it this year, I can't say I'd be entirely surprised.
And notice how we've started with Formula One again. Grassroots right through, but we're starting with. But one thing about Formula One is the next round is Miami. How do you think? And we haven't mentioned our local mate, good old Liam. How do you reckon he's going to go in Miami?
That's a sprint round, isn't it?
Yeah.
So once again, they get less practice in lieu of doing a sprint with the whole quali and the sprint race and all that. I just want him to have a clean run.
I want him to be comfortable in the car. If he's comfortable in the car, and exactly right, if he doesn't get a clean run, because, correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't he been penalised by stewards every single preliminary race at some stage?
Well, not necessarily penalised, but he's had gearbox issues, he's had ERS issues, he's crashed in Australia, which obviously that was slicks on a wet track, what was going to happen. I don't think there's a single round yet that he can hang his hat on and say, I drove to my fullest potential and here's where I ended up. Right. It might not have been a win necessarily, but even just to get in the point, I mean, he so very nearly got into the points at Jeddah.
Yeah.
And of course, again, post-race penalties. Yeah, so look, I'm just desperate to see him have a proper round that he can actually hang his helmet on and say, here's where I am in the pecking order. Whether it's midfield, whether it's upper midfield, whether it's lower midfield, just something that he can actually
But that,
know.
sorry, mate, that would be qualifying though. He needs to qualify better. He needs to. I mean, and again, I'm not anti or pro anyone, but you've got to say, young Isaac Hedger has done a sensational job getting that practice right. Even Yuki, to a degree, in the main Red Bull team, has actually had his sessions of qualifying well. I mean, he crashed out in the last one at Saudi. It was a shame, and I mean it was a shame too. I don't wish any ill on the team, but if Liam can get his set up right, get the car right, get his pace right, I'm just it's like I'm watching a one-armed bird trying to fly at the moment. I just feel that, you know what I mean? And I as a Kiwi, which don't fly at all, but as a Kiwi, we want to see him, just like you say, we want to see him stretch his legs, have a good run, no problems, and and hang his hat on a good result, whether it's top 10 or not. But hang his hat on a good result. Hey, we need to get some points too.
And the thing is, it's such a high expectation we do have for Liam to be in Formula One. Because when you look at, and I'm quickly going to segue into IndyCar, you look at, you got Scott Dixon, you got Scott McLaughlin, and we've got the Indy 500 coming up on the 25th of May, and they got some qualifying underway. Now, quick question, chaps. Kyle Larson, sprint car driver extraordinaire, midget driver extraordinaire, NASCAR driver, and also running at the Indy 500 for the second time, crashed his car, but the car's been repaired. But was it Yuki Tsunoda? Not Yuki Tsunoda. Takama Suto.
Yes.
Takama Sato.
Yeah. 94 Gs he pulled in his crash. When a space shuttle leaves the launch pad, it's 3G, right? When you sneeze quite vigorously, it's 2.9G. A dragster launches at 5.3G, and that's like 0 to 300 kilometers an hour in less than a second. And some roller coasters can pull 12G, but 94G, how is the man still alive? Now, I had this explained to me. Someone said it's instantaneous. There are two telemetry readings on the car, instantaneous and sustained. Sustained G is the one that can really
knock you around.
Yeah, knock you around, because there was, and it was at Indy a few years ago, like about 10 years ago, the cars were circling during practice and speed week, and drivers were passing out, and the car was rolling up against the wall because the car at 239 miles an hour, as it rolled out of the corner, the G-force was enough to take the blood away from the driver's head for a nanosecond, and they just lost control and the car smacked into the wall, so they had to physically slow the cars down for that. But 94G in 1 second, that'd make your eyes pop, wouldn't it? I mean, literally
would.
Yeah.
Literally would. I mean, your eyes can pop out of your head if you have the big Gs. We've seen that in other forms of, contact racing. So 94, phenomenal number, but my word, I can't even imagine it.
So he'll be, apparently he's perfectly okay. Was taken to the health places, and he said, yep, you're fine. The car, a little less fine, but they're looking forward to racing that. They race on the 10th in Indianapolis on a road course. So, and of course, as we were started out with the Kiwis driving there, Scott McLaughlin, Scott Dixon doing incredibly well. And the other guys are
Marcus
coming
Armstrong.
through.
He's starting to pop up too, and regularly.
Marcus Armstrong, yeah. He's really starting to. People are taking notice of the way he drives.
Yeah, he's regularly in the top 10. Not necessarily finishing there, but he's depending on the pit strategy, and that makes such a difference on various tracks that they use. You can see a guy, around the top 5, 10 on all day, and all of a sudden they come back to the realise the strategy, and boom, they're in the 20s and 30s, which is what happened with Shane. And that was a real shame. There's a couple of problems there with. Can we jump to NASCAR?
Oh, yeah, we can definitely, because that's definitely.
Look, just to put a caveat on this, we've got 2 weeks of motorsport to go through. So I don't know how 30 minutes is going to stack. So if we go more than 30 minutes, but getting to NASCAR, look, all we really watch is Shane. I mean, like you say, Larson and others, some of them are just geniuses. They can drive anything, and I believe Shane's there too. Just hasn't got his head around the around that oval track racing yet, which is literally going around in circles. But to see him featuring up in and around the top 10 on a fairly regular basis, comes in for a pit stop, misses the limiter on his pit and overspeeds, you got to go around again, buddy, because you went too fast in the pit. Mate, it's NASCAR. We go fast. No, you got to go around again.
But did you see the entry? There was like 4 or 5 cars all coming in.
Yeah.
And Shane just straight through the middle of them. Row! I thought, well, if it was a drag race to get it parked, you'd win on that one.
Well, if he could have drifted his way through.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen incidents in the past where there's so many, because again, those pit lanes are so tight, and they have all the crew on the one side of the wall, so the car comes to the stop, and then the crew
they jump over,
come clambering over. But how often have you seen it where someone will actually get turned around in the pits, or someone will get bumped into in the pits, or there was one guy, I can't remember who or what race, someone will tell us, but he got turned around by someone in the pits, came into his pit backwards, and so the crew was just like, all right, we'll just switch the wheels around and do the stop here. And then he ended up doing luckily he had the space to basically kick the clutch, do a nice little loop, and he was on his way. But it was just that moment of disbelief where the crew was just kind of like, oh, this has happened, because of course they have all their pressures so individually set. So the front left has to be the front left. It can't just suddenly become the front right.
That'd completely muck everything out, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How long was that pit stop? Too long, man. Just come in. If you can come in properly this time, it'll be just great.
Tell you what, the sponsors got their airtime though.
That's the big thing about it, eh? I mean, NASCAR is so full of sponsors on the whole thing. But isn't it funny how I used to think, and this is because I was a plebeian like that oval racing, NASCARs, they just go around, they turn left, and that's it. But since I've taken an interest in it, man, it is quite exciting, isn't it? It is quite exciting, the actual thought and organisation that goes into it, and especially when you consider that, like you say, the tyres have to be in a specific place because that's what makes the car run.
And they've been week after week after week. They get a break coming up soon for a little while, but it's not a huge one. I mean, this harkens on to how we talked the other day about, a couple of weeks ago, about the supercars. When they have a race meet in New Zealand, and that's a month after they had a race meet over there, and then they got a race meet in a few weeks' time, and Taupo was a couple of weeks ago, and rah, and you sit back and think, man, how the drivers keep themselves race fit.
Yep.
And that's one thing that, Shane and the others have all spoken about, that in America, it's not about keeping yourself race fit, it's about keeping yourself fit after the race, because next time you're out there on the track again.
Yeah.
And just wouldn't mind diverting quickly back to F1. On those days between Saudi and Miami, which is coming up, question I don't know, and I don't know where I'd find the answer, is how much testing do the teams do in between these events? Like for Liam, he's going to be next out at Miami, and others as well. So you've got the rookie there, Hadja. You've got Yuki, who's now behind the wheel of the main team car, which is apparently a different car. So, how much testing do these guys do?
I think they go hard on the simulators, because
they're actually limited in the amount of time the car can spend on a track. So I think
they have, there's 2 different ways they can test. They've got the wind tunnel, and then they've got, I think it's computer fluid dynamics or something, right? But
man, I'm going to write that down.
The amount of time they get
Here's a pen.
in the wind tunnel, for example, it's like the amount of time that they get to test depends on where they placed last year. So the winning team, so McLaren at the moment, leading constructor, they get the least wind tunnel time, they get the least CFD.
Yep.
Whereas whoever's at the bottom, I don't know who was actually the bottom last
CFD.
year. Computer fluid
Okay,
dynamics, whatever.
Sorry.
Again, it's
wasn't paying attention.
A bit above my pay grade, but so those lesser teams actually get more development and research time above the other teams, and that's supposed to try and bring them a leg up.
See, what's good about these podcasts is people can't see what goes on. He just gave me a dagger's look. Nick just gave me a dagger's look, because I didn't know what to see. I hadn't paid attention on computer fluid dynamics, and that's what I really like about hiding behind this blank screen. So if you've got some sort of emoji of daggers or a nasty look, can you put that up for Nick just then?
That's why Nathan's here. Nathan knows stuff. We just talk shit. Yep. Nathan actually knows stuff.
Well, it's interesting, because you would think any normal business model, the most successful teams would get the biggest share of the pot, or would get the most money, would get the most research. But it's almost the opposite in F1. They get less development time. They get less time in the wind tunnel. I think they even get I think the prize money is still the biggest share.
The big,
but
huge,
it's like they try to do these things. Obviously, the lesser teams do have to actually make use of that time. No point having extra wind tunnel time if you're going to sit there and sort of blow around with the wind with your hand. But look, it is interesting. And I mean, how good you see some of these cars this year. I mean, Williams have got more points this year than they did like all of last season.
Okay, question about that then is, did Williams deliberately make a shit car last year so they got more time in the wind tunnel and they could copy other people's designs?
Sometimes they do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes teams do that. You hear about teams, we're focusing on next year's car.
Do you remember when the Mercedes had what they called the porpoising problem? And you would have thought the gap between races, they could have fixed it or done something about it because it was to do with the underfloor airflow and that sort of thing. Just put a big block there, I don't know. But they didn't do it. But the next year, their car was competitive again, yeah? So maybe there's just that kind of one-upmanship coming in there.
I'll stop you there.
Okay.
Because it's time we stop talking about F1.
All right, fair enough.
They got 2 hits of that one.
Now, quickly, you mentioned drifting before.
Yes.
Now, there was drifting at Bay Park, and I saw some drifting D1NZ that was at Mount Smart Stadium. And I've got to say, I don't know how they score drifting, because the bit I saw on TV from Mount Smart Stadium was incredible. The guy in the second car ran right up under the wing of it, so it looked like they were pulling a train of smoke, and it looked fantastic. And when it came to the crossover, he got his car in such a position, he just dropped in front and just got his bumper just ahead of the other guy, and it was just actually like ballet. It was really good to watch. And then they did we'll do the points up, and he lost. And I was thinking, the other guy hit the wall and didn't do as good. It just looked terrible. But the guy that did the great driving got nailed. And I thought,
get that.
So I've literally just Googled, how do they score drifting?
Okay, here we go.
Because that's about what anyone else would do, right? If you want to know how they score drifting. And this is on the Red Bull website.
Okay.
Now, Red Bull, the way they go about things, you think that the drinks was a side hustle.
Well,
but,
Mad Mike Widdett works for the Red Bull team, and he is an ace drifter.
Exactly.
I think Red Bull worked for Mad Mike, to be fair. I mean, that guy has so much fun on their ticket.
So,
I take my hat off to Mad Mike.
Unlike other motorsport disciplines, neither lap times nor track position play a role in drifting.
Okay.
Wow. Dude, that's blowing me away. So there's 4 main criteria: the speed and fluidity, the drift angle, the line selection, and style.
Okay, well, the guy that didn't win this particular one I saw from Mount Smart, he cleaned up absolutely everything. The angle was brilliant. The fluidity, the way the car just danced on the track. Before the other guy went into transition, he actually picked the moment so his car just fell naturally. He thought, that just looks class.
And no one likes a fishtail.
No.
You can tell when someone, like, we actually did a day with Mike Eadie with Track Time years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just this little Mazda MX-5 on the wet skid pan at Hampton Downs. Yeah, go have a play. And he's got all the cones, and we were just, there was no course, there was no real reason.
Yep.
It was just slide the car around, basically. And that was so well balanced. A little MX-5 in the wet, it's probably 100 horsepower, trying hard.
Yep.
And it was just, you could just hold it. You could do basically consistent circles in that thing, no worries. So, speed and fluidity, you can understand the need to keep things going. Drift angle, I mean, again, how many times do you see the GoPro footage where they're right up next to each other, almost vertical,
or where they back it into corners,
or they back it in,
flick it in. That's
that would probably fall under line selection.
Okay.
But then style, I wonder if style has anything to do with like smoke, because I know I've seen some drifters talking about.
I thought smoke was part of it, to be fair, but obviously not.
Not in the one they had at Bay Park, because it was wet, and so you got like massive slides, and you could see the angles, but you just didn't get the smoke, and it didn't look just quite as cool.
Because they have proximity areas too. You've got to be. Here's a little like a bus stop in paint. True. You've got to be through that. You've got to be over here. You've got to do this and that.
They've got the clipping points as well.
Clipping points.
The big, markers that you can hit it and it'll just wobble a bit. But
and that's sort of cable tied onto the car.
So the question is, and a lot of people say this, they say, and I'm quoting other people I've heard, drifting's not motorsport. Oh. How do we feel about that?
That's an arrogant thing to say. There's a lot of skills, man. The 800, 900 horsepower car.
Yeah. Do you remember the one, was it, I think it was Mad Mike and like Ken Block and a few of those guys that did the drift shifters?
Yes.
And it was basically a big pinball type arena.
That was
awesome. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was a spectacle.
And the cars themselves, I mean, the technology that's gone into them, the amount of horsepower that they kick out, and the ability to fly around and not fly apart. And if they do get the wall clipped and that sort of thing, hanging together under those kind of stresses. I mean, they're actual engineering marvels, those guys. I think they do an excellent job.
It's a very trusting motorsport too, isn't it? Like with like NASCAR and all that.
Actually, yeah, more
with
than anything
NASCAR,
else.
you've got people inches apart doing 200 mile an hour, but with drifting, you're doing whatever you're doing, 60, 70, 80 Ks, I don't know.
And if the guy's turning on smoke in front of you and you're the chase
sideways,
car, you can't see. Yeah. You can't see a thing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of trust in the other guy.
We've got some drifting converts going on here. So what you're saying is that you wanted someone to give you an MX-5 to drive with an LSD so you can have a go at drifting, and you want to try something close proximity with somebody else and actually see if you hit them or don't.
Do you remember in the...
I can see a challenge going on.
No, this goes back a few years. Remember the Big Ben utes, drifting utes they used to have at
the stunt utes.
The V8 Supercars?
Huggies ones, yeah.
Yeah, I had to go in one of those, and it was I laughed, and the guy thought I was nuts. And he said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "This is so much fun. This is just crazy." But seeing as I got onto the drifting thing, this weekend at Taupo, it's the drifting tour, the LZ Tour, is coming to New Zealand. This guy called Adam Lizotte Ziesler. He
drifting tour.
Yeah, he's a BMXer out of the States, got into drifting, and he's bringing a drifting tour through Australia and New Zealand, bringing their own cars and turning up. And if we haven't convinced you it's a good idea, even if you just go and check out the machinery the guys are running, it is something else.
So is there New Zealand drivers in it as well, or is it just the Americans?
I think it's just Americans and a couple of Australians are coming over, and hopefully there could be a couple of guys from D1NZ, because some of those guys are kick-ass, when it comes to doing that sort of thing. So that's on at Taupo this weekend, if you feel like going and checking that one out, that sort of thing. Speaking of which, anything on the calendar? Anyone's been in touch about... motorsport that's on the way?
It's huge. There's huge things coming up this weekend. But last weekend, before we go to the calendar, last weekend was got invited to go down and have a bit of a chinwag about Kihiki Speedway.
Oh, right.
And they had the Waipa TQ Midget Champs.
Yep.
And they had the Waipa Stock Car Champs.
Who won the Midget Champs? TQs.
Who do you reckon?
Come
on, you're the... I was actually going to ask you about the track, but
that'll be a minute.
Okay.
He was awesome.
He's the TQ number 3.
No? 2. Regan Tyler.
Oh, he's won everything this year.
Mate.
And I've actually got to say a big hats off to Regan Tyler. He's helped put together for the 24-25 season the TQ Central title. They did a title over racetracks including Kihiki, Bay Park and Western Springs, and they did it for the club. So that the club, so it would give the guys a little bit more incentive to get out there and race. And we've seen brilliant racing from the TQs. And Regan's done incredibly well.
So Kihiki Speedway had the TQ Midget Champs. He was just the clean-up. I mean, there were some really good drivers out there. There's some really fast cars. But he just worked his way through. Wherever he was on the start-up grid, bang, 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 and away he went. And just beautiful driving. Got to say, the Kihiki track, when it first started, we started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, just gone. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And very, very early they started to rut up turn 3, which at Kihiki, that's quite a common thing. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, this is going to become a train wreck turn 3, because you can bite in over she goes, especially mini stocks, which were there as well. But the track got better. It was really amazing. I mean, the ruts were still there, but they weren't. They became
softened.
I was going to say they're almost like they were flat ruts, if that makes sense. They weren't digging wheels in, and not one car had a problem because of that track. And
unsettle the car rather than roll the car.
Yeah. And so they were all driving around it. And then when the dew started to come in at about 6:30, 7 o'clock, it started getting dark. The dew came in. We started at 3. We finished about 7:30. So it was 7ish. It was a long day.
Yeah.
But it was a good day. But as the dew started to come in, you could literally see the next group come out, and they were leaving tracks, and they hadn't rolled or anything
nice
in between.
and sticky.
Beautiful. And they also ran the Waipa Stock Car Champs, and then they did the championship, and then they did the 25 lapper, and the champs was a guy who was a last minute entry, and got himself through on the skin of his teeth, but then just dominated, and it was actually won by a Gisborne registered car, 98 Bryce Simpson.
Yep.
And he was stonking, and then the Kiwi. Talk about being a local Aucklander, 94 Sam Wright from Auckland, and the Rotorua driver there, 144 Stephen Paddle. And it was nice that the spoils were shared around, but then they did the big 25 lapper after that, and I do apologise, I didn't get results for that, but it was a massive 25 lap stock car race.
Yep.
And with the championship, the title, they had a 10-lap final. The cars that got through to the thing came through to the 10-lapper, and you could see these guys that got turned around very early in the piece. Right, my chances are out. I'm going to be blocker. It was awesome, man. It was some of the
Priorities
best.
have changed slightly.
So this Saturday coming, I think it's the 2nd of May, Kihiki have a demolition derby on.
Yep.
They've got all the classes there, and it's going to be a really, really big way. And it's like $25 through the gate. Starts at 3:00. That's good money.
That's a really good thing about it. It starts at 3:00, and like you say, it finishes at 7. So it's not a long late night, but it's a great afternoon's entertainment. Yeah, especially if they're going to smash them out. And
it's a club run event too. And I'm not poo-pooing any other run events, but when you got club, there was no problems. There was just solutions. And we had a situation in the booth, and there was a little thing that needed to be addressed, and it got addressed. It was a no problem. We just kept going as we could.
The F word wasn't used at all?
Well, the ELS word was used a few times because it wasn't working. But they came up with a solution and got a big screen from the other side, turned it around so you could actually see in there, and it was just. The whole club can-do attitude with that place is something about. They remind me of. I'm used to Waiuku dirt track, and Kihiki for a speedway feel very, very similar. So very positive. I don't think there's any egos in there. So I'll stop waffling on about it. But it was a really cool place to be, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And might even go down as a spectator this weekend if I get all the get all my chores done.
All right. Anything else coming up?
Yeah, plenty more coming up.
Go on then.
Don't have a calendar yet. We've still got.
You don't have.
We got heaps to go through.
Oh, okay. Well,
we've got heaps to go through.
Okay. So what have you got?
Well, you've already touched on the drifting. I've already marked that off.
I'll get that out.
But Waihi Beach Dirt Track Club this weekend. They've got Waiuku Dirt Track going down for the final of their challenge race.
Can I ask a quick question on the Waihi Dirt Track? Do they still have the half car?
No.
Oh, they got rid of that.
Someone who's in this room, who's not you and me, Nick, actually got his first ever race win in that half car.
Race win?
That's
race
true.
win.
Yeah?
It was a good skid too.
Now, briefly explain to me what the half car was.
Oh, it was a great concept. I hope they do it again one
It
day.
was
In
the
fact,
most,
Waiuku
it was the most overdriven, under-maintained, beat-up, rough little thing, but it just kept going.
Yeah.
It was just this beautiful little thing. Was it an EX Lancer or something?
Yeah. It was.
It's just
it was
like, so
maintained.
that's just like a club car
Yeah.
that they get out there, and if someone is in need of a vehicle to go racing, then we can supply with the car.
You paid like $30 or $40 or something to run it for the day. You'd signed up as a driver, which wasn't a lot of money. You paid $5, I think, through the gate or something. It's just chicken, money.
And you touched on that before. This is about the grassroots level of a great lot of entertainment. You don't actually have to have your own car at that stage. You've just got to have an interest in it, and maybe some people that can help you out. And you never know, you might just be able to. So Waihi
Waihi Beach Dirt Track Club. This Sunday. Mm-hmm. And the gates open. I think the gates open at 8:00 or 7:30, 8:00. Racing, I think, is 11:00. Mm-hmm. They kick off, so a lot of time for scrutineering. It's the last hit out for a lot of people. So they welcome stock cars, speedway cars, go-karts sometimes go there, so it tells you how good the track is.
And if you're a big supporter of the beach hop, they always have a jalopy dust-up with some great classic hot rods go around there as well.
And it's the best view of motorsport, I reckon. It's just like
get up on the hill under the tree.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the racetrack in front of you, and you've got the sea out there. And if it's a sunny day, it's just a great place to be.
You see for miles.
Yeah.
The visibility is just like nothing else. Yeah, like you said, it's one of the most picturesque racetracks out there.
Yeah. The tree. A couple of weeks ago, we had a small event we watched on TV, sat down, and I had probably one of the best events I've watched for a heck of a long time.
Really?
And it wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was a bit controversial. The Bathurst 6hr.
Okay, now Bathurst 6hr, this is different from the V8s and that sort of thing. So explain it to me, because
you got
Bathurst is like Bathurst.
Oh,
to me.
dude, you've got the Bathurst 1000.
Yep, that's
Supercars. Mm-hmm. You've got the Bathurst 12-hour, which is predominantly GT3, GT4 cars. So those are $2, $3, $4, $500,000 cars. Supercars are probably close to $1 million. Bathurst 6hr is production cars, not production-based, production cars. You don't modify them. They are anything, I think the oldest car there was a 1999 Toyota Camry.
Wow, Camry?
Camry V6, front-wheel drive, manual, Toyota V6 Camry. The newest car, they were all brand spanking new BMWs, and there was all sorts of cars in
Mustangs,
there.
Camaros,
Yeah.
all that
Everything
sort
in
of-
between. And the big, and we talked about this before, a couple of weeks ago, the lead up to it, we talked about Mr. Quinn turning up with a Camaro, whereas Triple Eight run a Camaro this year, but next year, of course, they're moving to
won't be,
Ford.
yeah.
So, but what I really liked about it was, there's a lot of things I liked about it. The production was a live stream; it wasn't on Sky. So we sat there, and Nathan had it all, tuned in through his phone, watching on the TV, and there was glitches, and there was, usual live stream sort of problems, not major, but there was a few atmospheric issues came into it, and the commentary was not the regular commentators we hear with Supercars,
Right.
and they were different. One of the pit guys was Aaron Noonan, the Super Sleuth guy, and he asked the questions you and I sit there and think about. Like, he went up to Tony Quinn and said, well, do you think it was a good idea building the Camaro? Because next year, and Tony's going, good idea. Would you like to buy a car? And all this sort of stuff. And it was really cool that, and the pit reporters, all of them, and even the commentators were just different. They weren't, and I'm not being negative to the Supercars guys, I just feel like they script what they say. You hear the same thing time and time again. To hear something fresh and not perfect, not polished, but the really amazing story, well, there's a lot of them, but the Camry finished. The Camry
Really?
actually started dead last, I think it was, pretty much last place. 69 cars started there, 73 cars entered, 4 of them destroyed themselves. Another car got called in to be on the waiting list, came out, that destroyed itself. So
Yep.
69 cars started. The winner, I should say, was one of the BMWs with Cameron Crick behind the wheel, and they actually qualified and started in 66th place.
What?
And they came through over 6 hours and led the race and was having a good battle in the BMW class, which primarily the Bimmers were right up there. And Jaden Ojeda, another super fast car, Crick, who's done some amazing driving, and those two are having a big squabble. Few controversies there right up towards the end. There was safety cars, and you know how safety cars breed safety cars, and it got to a point where they had so many that they didn't have any. And for hours they had no safety cars. And then the commentators, and again, they're saying what everybody thinks. Oh, you know what would really stir this up right now? A safety car. And don't say that. An hour later, still no safety cars.
Oh, really?
So it was really cool.
And there's so many classes as well,
Really
because
cool.
they have I lost track of how many categories they had, but you
Yeah.
had your Class X, which was your top of the range super duper. Then they had Class A, B, C, D,
B2
E. And this is the thing too, the categories themselves were segregated
split as well.
into turbo and non-turbo.
Yeah.
Right.
So you could have a Class A, I don't know, a Mustang, so that's non-turbo, but then you'd have a
Forced induction
BMW, something
Yeah.
or other that's turbo. And the Class E, I believe, was entirely Mazda MPS hatchbacks.
Yeah, that's the
Hatchbacks.
Yeah.
Hatchbacks. So that was your E class. I
Yeah.
think that was the bottom of the barrel as far as performance goes.
I don't know.
No, I'd
There
say the
was-
Camry.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There was what, 6 of them or something?
Yeah, I think
But my
5 or
point
6,
is
yeah.
with 60 plus cars on track,
Yeah.
the amount of individual battles, and I
Yep.
mean, one of the drivers got interviewed, can't remember who it was, but he alluded to this about trying to do your own race, but then also if you're a faster car, you're trying not to interfere with those guys who are battling, and then if you're a slower car, you're trying to battle while making yourself relatively easy to pass for the faster guys.
Do you remember when the big race at Bathurst used to be made up of a whole bunch of
Oh,
different
yeah.
classes? And there were
Everyone
things
talks
like
about that.
escorts and
Yeah.
sleekers racing with the likes of the Commodores. And
Well,
there was
that
the
was
Channel
Group
9.
A.
Yeah.
And Group N.
Yeah.
And Group N was your Toyota Corollas and your little stock standard production smaller cars. And Group A with Brock and Johnson and all the iconic names of the past. And that's what this reminds me of. And that's what I loved about it. I loved that it wasn't perfect. I loved that there was glitches. I loved that there was terrible sound issues. There was, one minute you'd have a microphone go quiet, and then the guy would boom at you, the pit guy would boom at you, and then cross down to someone, and there was a bit of a delay. And I didn't mind that because it made me think, well, this is a human event. I'd like it to be on Sky, sure, but it didn't need to be. I'd like it to be perfect, but I was glad that it wasn't. And I don't know, and like you said, about bringing back the old days of combining all of these classes on the track, they survived. 69 cars.
There is a question, though. I mean, is it a feasible thing to do? Because there is going to be some guys out there that have a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And if they're coming into a corner, And there's a whole bunch of guys that are just out there pedaling around to their Mazda SP23s, and he has a significant brake failure. He's going to go through them.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
But they didn't. And this was the thing, is that, like, I mean, yes, there were yellow flags. I mean, there were sometimes we would just come out of a yellow flag period and there'd immediately be another yellow flag because those guys tangled and now one of them stuck in the dirt. But for all of that, like the racing itself, like you said, how many cars actually survived and lasted, it was actually really good. And the weather even played ball too, because the entire time it was sort of, well, especially towards that latter half, it was really threatening. And they run an all-weather tyre, so there's no
slicks.
No slicks.
No.
I think they were all on the exact same tyre as well.
Right.
But the issue that they were having was blowouts.
Yeah.
They were having some tyre dramas down Conrod, and I think more than a few guys.
Oh,
And
there
it
would
wasn't
be
the Hankook fault.
Yeah, there would be a few cars that would be totally maxed out, though, going down there at Conrod, wouldn't they?
Well, they're also trying to try hard the pressures. You know, if you come out with super low tyre pressures, you're obviously expecting them to build up. But in that interim, well, guess what? It's particularly easy to pick up a bit of debris or to, oops, you ran them too flat.
The main runners were the ones that had the biggest problems, and they had the massive camber going on there, and it was chewing the inside of the tyre. Everyone was chewing the inside of the tyre, even Nathan Howe going, what's wrong with these Hankooks? And then you have a look at where that one's blocked on the inside, that one's popped, and then they were putting brand new tyres on, unroaded, and then expecting them to be out there doing really fast lap times for them.
Question then, is there the possibility of this type of racing environment at New Zealand racetracks where you can have multiple classes running like that?
Well, look, I said before about, we don't know who won what in New Zealand motorsport, and these, we don't have a top tier race. I would pay money to watch this. I would love to put cars on the track. I'd love to see a class eventuate. I'd love to be part of it. Honestly, it was such a good race, and I'm not a warm, fuzzy, happy feeling sort of thing about it. I've seen a lot of motor racing, but I've realised how much I haven't seen in the Bathurst 6hr.
I've just got a picture in my head of I went to see the old Benson and Hedges 500 at Pukekohe, and there was the thing I remember most about it is there was a Fiat 131R that had been entered, and he was fanging it down the back straight, really going for it. And then there was this massive puff of smoke as everything just let go. But for a brief moment in time there, he was really challenging some of the faster cars. But the reality was, you could buy that car in the showroom, and of course they were done up for racing and prepped for racing, but there was something about that aspect of it that I found, and there was multiple classes, because
But a lot of these cars, you're right, you could have, there's this whole talk about race it on Sunday, buy it on Monday. I don't see that being what the target here was. It was a case of being affordable cars. I don't know what a late model Bimmers were, brand new Bimmer, a couple $100,000, really expensive, a lot of money. But then you can go down the tiers, right, to a brand new, what's an equivalent fast car you can go and buy now that's quick? Like a GR Yaris or a Mustang. I mean, no GR Yaris there. They were Corollas, which I was surprised about.
Yeah,
but
GR Yaris is a massively expensive car.
Oh, yeah. But you could have run anything, and it can be relevant to what you see on the road.
Yeah.
And I think, and the fact we saw a 99 Camry, it's got a name, I think, is it not Brutal? They call it something.
It's that cult hero.
And
hero,
it's got its own fan base.
It's the same with in the Nürburgring. There's a team that run a Dacia Logan, and it's like, again, Nürburgring is GT3.
I have no idea what a Dacia Logan is.
It's
no idea.
Just your typical 80s, Euro crap box.
Right.
But they run it every year, and I think recently they actually wrote it off.
No.
But they are rebuilding it. And
Came back from the dead.
But that's one car that's got such a cult following. And I believe it's the same story as this Camry. It's just that local hero that shows up year in, year out, ever since 2002 or whenever they first started tracking it. Again, then they need more of that. And the thing about it too is that this is one race. Yep. Obviously, we're talking about, would there be interest in a series? I mean, you'd want to do a series, wouldn't you? You'd want to do something like that.
And you'd want to take it to most racetracks in New Zealand.
Yeah, if you did a nationwide thing.
Yeah.
Start at the south, start in Tiratonga, work your way up, or something like that.
Look, and if we're talking about race on Sunday, sell on Monday, we could get maybe see the new electric cars, the BYDs, and the motors.
I'll stop you there.
Hold on.
Yeah, only because we haven't said that much in this broadcast. But if you could still go and buy a new Dark Horse Mustang. I think you can still get a Camaro only for a little while longer, but you could get a relevant vehicle you see on the track.
Yeah,
You know,
but
Dodge
honestly,
you
mate,
could have.
if I got myself a Dark Horse Mustang, there is no way I'm taking it on a track for
Yeah, but
somebody else to put a scratch down the side
it's
of it.
you and two others paying the bills to get the car on the track, you know, and you share it all that. You get a few sponsors. It doesn't cost you that much money at the end of it, though.
And you would get to drive it to its maximum, wouldn't you?
And people would love to do, you know, I'm not saying we'd get I'm not putting anything up on this one, but I think it's something that needs to be seen. More people want to see production-based cars. Like I say, don't care about the race on Sunday, sell on Monday, but people want to see it. Now, on that note of well dones, I also want to shout out to a good personal mate of mine who's driven with us in Hooncorp, Chris Holt, who put in the number 19 BMW, managed to finish second in class in the B2 class BMW, I think it is B2, and 15th overall. So made the top 15 by the skin of his teeth.
That's pretty good.
I'm pretty proud of that, considering I call him the
that's not
gearbox
bad.
breaker and all that. I give him heaps, but he's an ex-dirt track guy from Waiuku. He's a guy that's gone over to Aussie and made it. And look, you know, Kiwis doing what Kiwis do. He's put up with some bad results over there and had a few breakages and things, but really neat to celebrate, you know. And other Kiwis that were over there too. I mean, there was supercar drivers out there. You know, there was a lot of them. But the whole can-do attitude of this event is something that's just, it's drawing me like a beacon. And I'm sitting there going, should I go to Aussie and be part of this? Or do we bring it to New Zealand or see what we can, you know, what we can encourage? If not do it, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? I can see this young fellow out there doing something grouse.
Once again, I've gone and consulted Uncle Google.
Here we
right?
go.
Oh, no.
So, a list of cars that you can buy today in 2025,
Yep.
manual and rear-wheel drive.
Okay, there must be, what, 6?
BMWs,
Yep.
obviously.
All right, we've already heard BMW.
Nissan Z,
Yep.
the sports car. What's that?
Yep.
3-litre turbo, I think. Twin turbo.
Yeah.
Is that the 400Z?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, they just call
All
it the Z, but anyway.
All right. And there wasn't any at Bathurst. Carry on.
No. Mazda MX-5,
Okay, yeah, good option.
Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, Hyundai Elantra N.
Oh, okay, that's a hybrid, isn't
I
it?
didn't know
Really?
those.
It's a
I didn't
hybrid.
know those were rear-wheel drive.
Oh.
I assumed they were front wheel or four wheel.
I thought
But
they were all
cow.
right.
anyway, Supra, Dodge Challenger. So what I'm getting at is there's a
Dodge
pretty good
Challenger.
variety of speed. You know, like we've got
Yeah.
MX-5s, we've got Dodge Challengers. That alone
Yeah.
is a pretty good spread of performance. You could have not necessarily the Bathurst 6-hour,
Yeah.
but you could have a Bathurst 6-hour flavoured event of off the showroom floor models
Production cars.
without too much hassle.
Audi. You could still bring it out. Not
what
manual
does Audi
necessarily,
do?
but V8. Audi's got all sorts of classes they
What do
cover
they
there
have
as well.
that's- Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, but they're all
He's right, you know.
front-wheel drive or four-wheel
No,
drive.
no.
I
rear-wheel
suppose
drive
if you had
as
like
well.
an A4.
Doesn't have a rear-wheel drive only option, though.
Okay.
And there was, I think there was some four-wheel drives in there as well at Bathurst. There was Evos and WRXs
Yeah,
too.
there was a couple. I think.
So they cater to everything.
Yeah.
I think we should too.
It seems to be one of those ones that you can sort of bring any car and they'll find a class to put it in. You know, they'll
Yeah.
figure out whether you're an X class or a
I've got a
B2
larder.
or a
Where does this fit? On the infield somewhere and preferably on fire.
Exactly.
Actually, I'll tell you one that I wouldn't
A
have
guy
thought
that owns a
of.
Skoda.
A Cadillac Blackwing.
Oh,
Now, Cadillac is a bit of an unsung sort of, like they do the IMSA, they've got their big prototype. And I don't know if you've ever heard that car, but that's a gorgeous sounding race car. The
I
Cadillac.
was doing a bit of a read-up about that because it's the only one of the only naturally aspirated cars in the that particular class. Most of them go for turbocharged, and it's huge capacity. And the idea is they keep the rev range down, so it develops its power quite low down, and that works best because they've got to have a hybrid drivetrain. Works best for the hybrid drivetrain, but it gives it this thunderous roar as it goes howling down the streets. God, it's amazing. It's just, listen to it. Listen to it. Its sonorous note is just fantastic.
Well, I was so inspired by the 6-hour, and I'll finish with this. So I was
Okay, good.
so inspired by the 6-hour. I went and what are the options for V8 cars? So I did write them all down. I don't have them on this book, which really annoys me. I didn't expect that we'd be talking about this, but I know Mercedes is an option. And if you went for 10 years, I mean, bearing in mind the Camrys are 99, so I thought if you did a 10-year cap on cars and you had the VF Commodore, SS.
Yes,
You'd still
Yep.
have the VF.
You'd still have the XR8 Falcon.
Yes.
Another
for a couple
option.
of years anyway.
Yeah, well, no. I'm saying once it's in, it's in. You don't age them out because they still. I mean, the
Oh,
'99 Camry is all I'm
okay,
saying. It's still
okay.
appropriate, still age appropriate, and also you've got Mercedes Benz in the V8 class. You've got Jaguar in the V8 class.
Jaguar.
Absolutely, and there's so many other cars that could be done. If you had the V8s in there as well as then your 6s and your 4s, and like you said, everything's covered, everything's included. 10 years to start with, it never ages out, and then obviously eventually, people go, we're going to move into a such and such.
Yeah.
I'm anti this BYD nonsense you speak of, Brown. I'm not impressed with you on that one, but the and track promoters and that track owners are very nervous about electric cars being on their track, especially in motorsport, because of the thermal runaway that can be produced. So that's something to be mindful of. But no, look, it's all fun, and I'm glad that we bring this up, because I think I said to you at the end of it, I really enjoyed that. It was so enjoyable.
It was such a peaceful watch too, and again, like you said, because it wasn't super duper production quality, and there wasn't Larko in the Hino hub, and there wasn't this, and there wasn't
and
that.
we love Yarko. We love
Larko. But there was just something about just sitting there with our chips, with our drinks, just watching the race. And, sometimes there were a few laps where it was just the cars, and the commentary was obviously off having a biscuit and a scone or something.
Which is what you do. If they're doing that, I'll go and have a biscuit and a scone now.
Yep.
I mean, there was a safety car, just another funny example. I know we're going on for time, but there was a safety car that came out, and during that safety car, there hadn't been one for ages. This is the big gap we had, and there wasn't any safety cars. This safety car comes out for whatever reason it was, a legitimate reason, and 3 cars stop by themselves. No contact, just boom, boom, boom. He stopped. Now you think, with other racing, they'd be, oh, what's happened with that guy? What's happened? And they go down and talk to the team. No, there's a lot of things we didn't know, and I didn't mind. And it's like, oh, car 52 stopped. Don't care, and they just didn't have time to cover it. They were covering this, they were covering that, and there's 2 or 3 cars that stopped. I don't even know exactly what they were. I know one was a Mazda, one was this, that, and the other. And it's like, there was so much they didn't cover. And it's almost like, well, how are you? And they go, I'll consult Google and find out how I am. Everything's on Google, and they all know. The fact we didn't know everything.
Tony Quinn's car, that Camaro, had issues, and we didn't find out what they were for probably an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Apart from it being a Camaro.
Apart from it
but
coming
you know what?
in and
I think they caused one of the first safety cars. Not the first one, but they
Something
caused
like
one of
that,
the early safety. And you know what the problem was? Brand new car, no testing. What happened to it?
they just ran out of fuel.
Ran out of gas.
They'd never run it long enough to know, oh, that's when you need to fill up.
Okay, I'm just going to point this. I'm going to stop you there, guys. It's got this little thing on the dashboard. It's got F for full and E for enough or empty. You know, when the little light comes on, it buzzes at you.
Maybe. And the driver was Grant Denyer. I mean, we're not talking about a muppet that doesn't know what he's doing, but they'd done no seat time. And I said to Nathan, I said, and I'm not trying to tell them how to suck eggs. These are very experienced people. I would have thought, okay, they haven't done anything, full tank of gas, do an hour, bring it in.
See how much gas is
52
left.
litres
Yeah,
or something.
work out how much it actually takes.
We've got an 80-litre tank, or I don't know what they've got. We've got an 80-litre tank, it took 52 litres. Right, we know that it's going to do an hour and a half, no problem, but it won't do 2 hours. And it was about an hour 35, hour 40 that it ran out.
I'm sure people would love to have a Camaro that did 53 litres in an
Oh,
hour.
well, yeah, true. Yeah, well, okay.
Anyway, at full tilt,
he's going to stop me there.
with Ryder Quinn behind the wheel especially. So.
Rightio, we are stopping. We did mention it's a bumper issue. We're just running past 40-odd minutes at this stage.
Oh,
so
we've got another 20 minutes to go because 2 times 30 minutes.
Oh, don't start me on that one. Just catch up with what's coming up on the calendar.
Yes,
Nothing.
definitely.
Oh, okay. Well, go on then.
As I've mentioned about Kiki next weekend, Demolition Derby,
That's
and Waihi Beach. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Canterbury Car Club are racing this weekend. They're doing a what they're calling a seal sprint. So does that mean they've got to go and catch seals, or and isn't that cruel?
They can do if it's by a waterway.
Yeah. There's a track day at Levels. The Alfa Romeo Club are having a day in Manawatu. So be careful if you're travelling around the Manawatu. There'll be a lot of Alphas down there. Watch out for the GTV V6s. They are something else, those cars. And there's a sprint in Hawke's Bay, a tarmac sprint in Hawke's Bay, and other places around the country. That's all I could find on this one.
We talked 2 weeks ago about the upcoming Motorsport New Zealand Club Sport Champs.
Yes.
I don't know, I didn't get results, but I saw them doing it at the Thunder Ridge facility, which is the new Tauranga track in the future.
Yes.
Right, they were running there. I saw photos that someone had put up. I think they really wanted to do this event because the rain they endured They were hardy souls. I'm not talking about sprinkles. I'm not even talking about heavy rain. It was torrential. And I'll tell you, if they've got the drainage at Thunder Ridge sorted out around the rest of the place as they did at this paddock that they had this thing set up, and it was set up really well, but they were hardy souls. And all I can say is whoever won, by crikey, you deserved it. I don't care if it was the most slow fat bambina out there on 3 wheels. You deserved it, mate, because everyone, and all the hardy helpers, they had all the people in the fluoros, they had people there, I'm sure, to give them penalties and all sorts of stuff. But it was amazing to see, and for a big event, it obviously was well contested. Good crowd, good bunch of numbers, and cars in the pits. So. That was another, and I think Thunder Ridge is a place we're going to have to start hearing. We'll be hearing a bit more
about that. We'll do some deep work on that. So Thunder Ridge is going to be one of the things. Okay, now quickly. So if the V8 Supercars decide they're going to do 2 events in the country, you get Rupa, and they're going to be up at Thunder Ridge, because doesn't the name sound good for
Sounds
V8s
awesome.
going through it?
Brings you back to the Thunderdome.
Yeah, Thunder.
Okay, that's it for this week. Bye.